Hi, welcome back. Today I want to discuss breaking the three so-called mystical knots, or sometimes in the yogic terms they call it granthis, that are obstructions in the path of advancement in yoga, and it needs to be broken in order for you to go to higher and higher levels. And they are theoretically said to be located in the root. The first one is in the root chakra, the Muladhara, or at the perineum area near to the base of the spine. The second one is said to be in the solar plexus region, in the navel region, corresponding to that region behind the spine. And the third one is said to be in the third eye region, or the part of the face where the nasal bone meets the forehead of the skull. So right here, right, is said to be the third and final knot, and one that is very difficult to break, the one that's the most difficult and near impossible to break. And so when we're speaking of this, you can't think in terms of a linear thinking methods, or logical thinking methods that you are used to. And a good example to explain this very logically, so to speak, is to try to do a preliminary summarized understanding about quantum physics and the particle and wave nature of molecules, and that when you can measure, you can go deep and see what are the constituents of an object, and go down to see its particles, what atoms, and go down to view the atom under a microscope. And if it's measurable, then you know it's there. But sometimes it's not measurable. So it's called a probability. So there's a probability theory. And so it's there and it's not there. Sometimes you see it, and then the next time you can't see it. And sometimes it can be in two places at the same time. Then it's, Einstein called it spooky action, right? It's a spooky phenomenon because it defies logic. And in another way is like everything, to speak more on a logical, everything has both a particle nature and a wave nature to it. So everything is like, you see it as an object and you can feel it as an object. But when you awaken your higher consciousness, you can see both natures. You can see it is also energetic and it is pure energy, and that the physical particle nature that you perceive is a simulation in your brain, and it's not really physical. And you tend to say, no, it's all energy, it's nothing physical. It is just you are interpreting it in your brain as physical. And things start to become confusing, especially when you start using psychedelics. And psychedelics immediately activates the higher consciousness receptors of your brain that switches between the quantum field and the physical field. So currently you are, we'll say, anchored in the physical realm. And once you take a psychedelic, immediately you get anchored in the quantum realm, right? And then you start seeing other alternative beings, entities, dimensions, what the normal eye can't see. And then when you get very used to it, it starts to get mixed up. It starts to merge. What other people can't see, you start seeing it in the physical dimension. Physically there, you can feel it, touch it, hear it, smell it, and communicate with it, get intelligent information that is applicable directly to your problem, but other people cannot see it, right? So it is the parts of your brain that gets activated during the chemical psychedelic influence. As you're getting more and more used to it, your brain gets confused and it starts auto-activating when it should not be activating, right? Involuntarily, right? And so that's the confusing side of it. And many people who in these days start to go into more and more into psychedelic experiences through mushrooms and ayahuasca and DMT and I think 5-MeO, right? It's said to be a very potent one that's absolutely mind-blowing, amazing. So if you are a fan of the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan Show podcast is available both on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcast, and the number one podcast channel in Spotify, Joe Rogan Experience, right? Rated number one. So he talks a lot about it and the experiences, and people normally go to certain parts of the world to have this experience, especially like in Peru, South America, Costa Rica, and also in the Far East, certain places. There is, I think in China and Philippines, there's a species of mushrooms that's available as part of normal cuisine, but if you eat it undercooked or you eat it raw, is going to exhibit a certain specific phenomenon, psychedelic phenomenon, that manifests 24 hours after you have consumed it. And for a few days, you're going to see the little ones, the little people, like similar to what the people call elves and gnomes, but they're smaller human beings, right? Like humanoid form, human form, and you can see them. They are everywhere, and there's so many of them in every room, everywhere, and they talk to you and they sneer at you and they can be rude as well. You know, as some incidents report. And science has identified them and started to study them in the last 10 years, right? So what they found is they could not identify the exact alchemy, the exact chemical in that particular species of mushroom that is causing this specific phenomena that it is known for, right? So of course, if they find it, then they can manufacture it in a laboratory and make money out of it, right? Or they can study it better. But it seems that there is some chemical that is still yet unknown and undiscovered, you know, by modern science. And that chemical, what causes it is in this particular mushroom that causes this specific phenomenon, right? And even till today, you can go to Philippines or to China and try to find out which mushroom causes you to see the small things after. And it's not forever, it's for a few days and it wears off. And then you're back to normal again. You'll stop seeing them, right? So all these type of things, phenomena, and the different types of psychedelics, like 5-MeO, is a very strong. It's considered poisonous, made from a certain species of toads or frogs, and highly poisonous normally, but they distribute it or they imbibe it or take it in a way that is safe and in a way that can cause a very massive and deep psychedelic experience that is considered a very positive experience, and you go to the highest level where you meet with this intelligent white light that a lot of people confuse to be God, that they met God and they spoke to God, and God told them what is their purpose in life, and what's, how to solve the current problems, what's the solutions, and so forth. And some of the other reasons people use the psychedelics, especially in ayahuasca experience. So why ayahuasca is more prominent is because it's a longer experience. DMT is a 10-15 minute experience. Mushrooms, I don't know. I've never tried any psychedelics, right? And I don't want to, because I'm able to have controlled um, higher dimensional experiences through my advancement in meditation practice. And the type of experience that people get in psychedelics is exactly the very same experience you get through meditation experience. Just that in meditation, it can take decades and decades and decades before you go deeper and deeper. But in a psychedelic, instantly, you can go to the maximum level. What? 0,0003 to 4% can only experience or start to open up, right? And with the psychedelic chemical, 100% instantly you can experience something, and you can experience intelligent energy. It's in the beginning, it's very confusing, and you think that you are now in a higher dimension. This is the true reality. And when you wake up to the normal mundane existence of this, then you say this is actually a simulation or an illusion, because others seem more real and this seems fake. This seems to be a dream, and the other seems to be a true wakeful state, because it's a higher level of, it's a higher dimension, so higher level of consciousness. Higher level of consciousness, I mean, as an adult, you know more, can think more, understand more than what a kindergarten child can understand. So we are on, on a dimension is that seems very low relative to the experiences that you have, the higher experience, because you can go to lower experiences as well, and where you can meet very fearful, wrathful, and harmful entities, right? And people become afraid, and they sometimes come into, when you come out of it, you start noticing them everywhere and start having, nightmares about them, and feel the presence. You can feel the presence and influencing you and disturbing you and troubling you and so forth, right? Now, in the meditation, as you're developing in meditation, you form a bond with an intelligent energy. Everyone got this intelligent energy within them, and different cultures stipulate different methodologies and call it by different names. And one of the common names from the South Asian cultures or Indian cultures is the Laya Yoga or Kundalini Yoga, but doesn't mean it is unique to that culture. They've preserved a certain form of science and practice that can sequentially and scientifically develop this step by step. And they go very deeply giving their version and explanation of it. But another culture that has preserved this science very well and still practicing it till today is the Maya culture, the Native American culture, where they have the same words that are synonymous in Kundalini Yoga. If you study Arthur Avalon's The Serpent Power, which he wrote in 1918, you can get some analogies and comparisons between the original, what terms are synonymous in, spoken of in the Kundalini Yoga by different, Ida Nadi, Pingala Nadi, Shushamna, and Kundalini itself, and Pranatana, and the moon energy, sun energy, fire energy. So all got its equivalent in the Maya culture as well. And they have, eventually they see the form, as a bear or a eagle, right? So in some of the Kundalini, they will see the form of Kali or the form of Tripura Sundari or Tara. And then you get the Far Eastern culture in the Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhism. They have the 21 forms of Tara, the blue Tara, red Tara, green Tara, and how to invoke. And they physically see the forms, right? So when you try to think of it, the problem where confusion comes is when academics are trying to explain it from an academic perspective, and they make comparisons and try to treat it in a logical manner. It is something beyond logic. It's now dealing with a subtle energy that defies normal logic. It can be two places at the same. There's no past, present, and future, and it is formless and can take on a form. And depending on the type of work or the energy level through which you're seeing it, the lens through which you are currently evolved, and how you're observing it, and how it's manifesting in you, it can manifest on various levels. So you see it in different forms, right? And ultimately, when you are ready for the complete manifestation, very few people can ever completely manifest the full energetic level, because it seems that it's not your choice, but the energy chooses you. And that's why very few people, you'll find that they get the power of Orion, and it becomes part of that person, and they get these mystical powers, magical powers, in certain esoteric practices of the Chinese culture in martial arts. And there is a video of Bruce Lee, who passed away. If those of you don't know him, he was very trending, famous actor, martial artist, and passionate about martial arts, kung fu, specifically, a Chinese tradition, a Chinese person, and trending in the US and Western cultures in the 1970s, right? And he unfortunately passed away at an early age, I think in his 30s. But he was trying to manifest the higher levels in martial arts, where you can punch a punch and not land it physically, but you stop your fist about a centimeter or 1 inch before your target, and the force of it is so intense, without even touching the person can go flying into the air and land maybe several meters away, as though he was hit by a massive force, right? So there is a video showing this, whether it is Photoshop or camera tricks, or whether it's real, I don't know, right? Some people say it's real and it's like amazing and so forth. And some people say that when you start using that energy on that level, then it takes so much, it drains so much of your life force energy, that usually the person, after utilizing it, he will not live very long thereafter. So it's like a type of explanation of what's involved. So these energies are very dangerous energy. You want to experiment with them, you have to understand what you are playing with, and what the consequences can be. Heed the warning. And unfortunately, there's a lot of ego, and some people go into the tantric traditions and they're reciting the tantric mantras, and they want to harness the power of that particular mantra, like maybe from the 10 divine feminine, right? That different, most of the forms are very fierce forms, right? And frightening forms. The iconography is very frightening. And when you get maturation of it, it's said that you can physically see that form. And an example of that is someone who is famous in history and well respected is Ramakrishna. When he first saw, had his awakening experience, he saw the energy as a white light, as a light, and he didn't want to see it as a light, he wanted to see it as a form. So it assumed its form in the form of the Kali, in the temple in which he was the priest, where they had the statue in that form, right? So when she went into that original form, the original was so frightening that he started to scream out of fear, right? According to historical accounts, and he couldn't stand. Then she changed from that fierce form into a more pleasing form for him that was not fearsome to him, and that's the form he always saw and maintained seeing, but others could not see, right? So he would say no, he's speaking, and he referred to the form as the Divine Mother, and he calls her a mother, and before he eats he will feed her, and he's like physically seeing her and physically feeding. And when he's feeding, the people will see him taking food and going up to the statue and putting the food, into the statue's mouth. And of course, to the common observer, you're seeing all the food going there and it's just falling to the floor, right? But in his vision, he's seeing as though the entity or the person is saying, in the quantum field, is physically there and eating, right? So it seemed like hocus pocus in those days and later days, but now with psychedelic experiences, now that it's so popular, especially it started to become popular in the 1960s, and now it's becoming, more popular because there's different ways and traditions and parts of the world where you can go and safely go into that experience. It is non-addictive, and there's no known major side effects if you go to a place that knows how they are, giving it to you, and you have some type of orientation and so forth, right? And they are so-called professionals, and people pay good money, and the reason they keep doing this on a yearly basis, because when you go into that experience and come out of it, you are a changed person. You come back much better. You come back usually enlightened, and you suddenly, all the pieces of the puzzle of your life, the confusion, and you're searching for the truth, or you're searching for what's your purpose in life and what is the meaning of life and so forth. It's all your immediate questions starts getting answered. And then every time you go to the experience again and again and again, you get more and more questions answered, because as questions get answered, newer questions form. Because it seems that you start evolving into a more intellectually higher level, right? So all this, what I'm saying, is related to these three grantees and the three levels. It's not a physical, it's called a knot. It's not like a physical knot that now you have to break it, but through the subtle life force energy, it's a third person who has enhanced his own energy can come and unblock it for you through some of the common process called chakra unblocking, right? So a person who knows how to professionally do it, I'm able to do it. I've created my own protocol. I don't know. I invented the protocol myself, from my mind. I didn't learn, because when I studied yoga and meditation and all that, there was no chakra unblocking therapy that I learned, right? And I only heard it because I'm doing energy healing, specializing in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses, and healing normal illnesses and so forth, right? In conjunction with medical science, not a replacement for medical treatment, right? So my customers start to talk about chakra and block, but I know what chakras, right? And experience it. So a lot of people attribute the 7 colors of the rainbow and says many people say they've never seen any colors, But that's because they didn't know how to view it, right? So you can experience the awakening of the 7 energy levels, right, that are situated to be along the spine. And actually, along the spine, there's probably around 40. There is major and minor energy centers along the spinal column, and there is major and minor energy centers throughout your body, totaling a total number of 114 major energy centers, right? So then with the minor, we don't know how many energy centers there could be, right? It could be a limitless number, right? If you're going to count the main minor ones as well, right? So from the 7 level, the root chakra and the Manipura chakra or solar plexus chakra, which is in the navel region, root chakra said to be in the perineum region or at the base of the spine. It's not physically in the body, but to give you a general idea where about, you will feel the pulsation of that energy, right? Of that energy center when it activates. So you can meditate, when you're advanced in yoga, you can meditate on that particular center. You'll feel it pulsing or like a sharp pinpoint, but normally it's like a throbbing, like a heart beating. You feel like it, or you feel it's circulating, right? So depends. So you can observe it as spinning, or you can observe it as pulsating. Depends how you're focusing, right? But it's physically there. So I can focus on my root chakra right now. As I'm speaking to you, I'm focusing there, and I'm feeling the pulsation like a throb. Voo, 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 doo. Like that. So I can feel. Then I can change my focus to my heart chakra. Now I can feel it there. Now I can change my focus to my throat chakra now, right? As I'm talking to you, I'm focusing, right? Right, I'm feeling it there. I'm feeling the throb there now. The throb moved from my root chakra. It moved. When I said, when I immediately put my thought in my heart chakra, it went there. It's still throbbing in my throat chakra. I didn't, remove this thing. And then now I can say, let me bring it to the third eye region, right, between my forehead, and I feel like a magnetic pull, right? Let me see if I can feel it as a throb. Yes, I can feel it as a throb. When I want to feel it, when I just calm myself, and then let me focus on my 7th chakra, slightly above the crown. Right, I'm feeling the throb slightly above the crown, right? So not many people can feel the 7th chakra because the granthis or the knots is blocking, right? So these knots get broken as you're advancing in yoga, and the energy is stuck in that region and can only rise after you've broken the knot. And you can break it psychologically because there's a psychosomatic or intelligence or emotional way attached to it, emotional type of thinking. So let's come to the root chakra. It says representing stability, earthing, and like representing like you're getting a stable job, having a house, having things that are stable, in your life. You have a stable income, you're going to get, you got a medical insurance with your job, you're going daily, you got a house, you got a family, you got a sense of identity, and who you are in terms of what you do, your work and your home and what car you have and which country, what's your nationality. All these are grounding things. So when you break that, you no longer, you can say, look, I am not a doctor. I can be a lawyer. You can change your identity easily and without any, subconscious, problems and thinking that, oh, I shouldn't have left the medical field, because I left medical school and went into, law, 3 years in medical school and, studying to be a doctor. And then I decided I didn't want that because partly a selfish reason, but the main reason was I didn't feel happy in it, you know. I think the core thing is I deplored seeing blood and sickness and illness all the time. Theoretically, it was good while you are younger and so forth, right? But when you're actually there in a medical school and you're seeing the reality that this is what you're going to be faced with, and the first reality strike, the first slap in the face was when I had to dissect a rat in the lab, you know, in the first year. And man, I did not want to attend because we were told what to expect, that they're going to give us all a mouse, right, or a rat, and they're going to give us some chloroform, and we're going to have to hold it in a little cage, and we have to put it over the nose until it dies. And you want me to, like, I'm feeling I have to murder a living, innocent living creature. And I didn't want to be part of that. I didn't attend that first class where, you know, where people were killing. I skipped it. And then, I mean, you're not going to pass. If you need the credits, you have to do so many lab, attendance, right? And you have to do, so this dissection was over three different weeks, right? 3 different sessions, right? And then they put it in chloroform or something to preserve it, and the next week you go and dissect it and you open, you can see the heart and the veins and, you know, all that. Then I had to come, I came, it was frozen. My one was already killed on my behalf by the professor. It was already dead and preserved for me and kept ready for me. I just have to use my dissection kit and catch up, with what I missed the previous week. And and then I'm cutting into it, and I didn't like that. And in the second year, now we have to dissect cadavers, you know, human beings. Using the word cadaver, it was a person. And my study of the subtle levels of science from the yogic sciences, and also modern science is catching up, right, to that when people is put under anesthetic and they are undergoing the operation, their body is feeling the pain. It's just that the pathway of the pain to your conscious mind is blocked, but it's not blocked to your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is feeling it, experiencing it, and when you undergo hypnosis, you can remember the pain. Now, when you come back to consciousness, you forget it. But it was an experience you had fully. Then there is some high philosophers in the yogic science. They say you must not, like I'll give you an example. The South Indian saint called Valalar or Swami Ramalinga Swamigal, who attained the deathless body, and there's a book, a thesis, PhD thesis by T.R. Tulasiram in the 1980s, and it's published as a book available on Kindle, and also on certain platforms you can download it for free. I think it's about an 800-page book. It's in 2 volumes, right? Called Arutperum Jyoti and the Deathless Body. So he said that people should not be coming from India, where people generally are cremating everyone, right? So he says, no, you should not cremate, you should bury, because the body feels the pain, right? So when you die, you are going into a very dormant level, and you go into in this tradition, right? Their belief, their theory, their philosophy. Now you're going into a dream. Just like how you go and you're thinking the dream is real, you're in real, but you're not in reality, you're in a dream. Your soul is gone into a dormant stage, and it's going to reactivate on the day of judgment, right? So this is the Judeo-Christian principle, and also Ramalinga's confirmation of theory from a very esoteric Saivite tradition, a South Indian tradition, which said to be the original tradition before the Aryan invasion in India that came and burnt all that original tradition were there and try to create the Vedic culture and the fire sacrifice and burning the body and cremation and so forth, right? But according to the original, it's a barbaric practice that the body is feeling that extreme pain when you're going to be reawakened on the day of judgment. So, of course, when you get buried, your body is going to become invisible, right? Because the maggots are going to eat you and you're going to decompose and there's going to be nothing left. It's like dust to dust, right? And when you're going to dig there after, several decades and so forth, you're going to find nothing, not even going to find the bones, right? Even the bones after several hundred years or thousands of years is going to not going to be there, right? Very rarely, under very rare circumstances, do certain skeletons, due to certain chemical interference in that particular location, gets preserved. And that's how archaeologists find ancient skulls and ancient skeletons and so forth, and can carbon date it to 300,000 years, like the one they found in the Morocco region, right? And some scientists, push back on it, and they say no, it's not really 300,000 years, and so forth. And there's a lot of debates, going in, and this. I'm not here to debate all that, and I don't want to, push back against different people's opinions, because who knows which is true, right? Once you start experiencing enlightenment experience and so forth, there's like no right and wrong, right? And so coming back to the root chakra, your sense of identity, your sense of your career and so forth. Now, I had my enlightenment experience by the age of 19 before I went into formal medical school. Before that, I was doing a BSc degree, the first year in science, and then went into medical school. And, so I already had the enlightenment, means the knots in my root chakra, my heart chakra, and my third eye, all three knots are broken, right? Which is that's how you can have the full enlightenment experience. The bursting of the energy, in the seventh chakra, right? And so someone who's broken the root chakra, right? Let's focus on the root chakra. He can assume any career and he can transform himself. He can assume many masks, right? Okay, I was in medical school, I can be like a doctor, and then I can go be like a lawyer, then I can be an entrepreneur, or then I can, as an entrepreneur, you need to be an accountant, you need to be a marketing guy, you need to be learn social media marketing, you need to know how to do cold calling sales, you need to learn how to do telesales, be good in telemarketing, then you need to know how to do presentations and negotiations, which is another skill altogether, and then like customer service and diplomatic, strategic, relationships, to be able to get contracts, corporate contracts, commercial contracts, and international contracts, and learning how to manage your finances, become, personal financial. Then also in wellness, how to manage your own health, become a wellness expert, then be an energy healer, then be yoga meditation teacher. You can assume many masks, and it's nothing. And then you feel you don't identify. I'm originally a South African, right? And biologically, I would say I'm from mixed race, right? Look Indian, because Indian they seem to have a very strong genetic influence. If, for example, you are like Caucasian in nature and you marry someone from India, the children going to look Indian, right? They're not going to look Caucasian. If you are Chinese and you marry Indian, the children going to look Indian, right? It's a very strong gene, like a very dominant gene from the Indian continent, I noticed, right? And even there's a joke, a stand-up comedian, Moaz Jibrani, right? his wife he's a Iranian, right? And he always called himself Persian, right? Like a cat Persian, and originally from Iran. And he's very proud of his culture, and he identifies as an Iranian and as a Persian. And he identifies his wife as an Indian, and I think she's in IT as well, which is a typical cliche, right? Indian means IT, right? And he says his children don't look anything Persian, right? They all look Indian. that gene is come to dominate. But you have to understand, in India has been in a very highly invaded country because it had a lot of wealth of spices, of traditions, and minerals and pearls and gold, and the Kohinoor diamond comes from there, and so forth. That the English culture, the British culture, the Dutch East India Company, right, in the 1600s and 15, a lot of traders, they went via sea, they went via land and all that to do trading and get the wealth of it, and also they wanted to dominate it, and out of greed they wanted to rule it, and it was conquered many times by different cultures, right? And the most recent culture that ruled it was the British culture. Then you had the Mongol culture and the Turkish culture and the Persian culture that went there, and so many cultures, and of course they became, they intermarried and so forth. So when you study genetics, the dominant genes will overpower a weaker gene. So as you're mixing more and more cultures, more mixtures, you're making a stronger selections, because maybe there is a set of 23 pairs of genes, for example, right? Gene number 1, 7, and 9 from the Persian culture is stronger than the original Dravidian Indian culture that was there in India. And gene number 11, 15, and 21 is stronger than the Persian culture, but the one that's going to exhibit in the child is going to be the stronger of the two. And slowly, by intercultural, they slowly wiped out the weaker genes, right? And created a stronger and stronger chain from so many cultures. So is it surprising that when you try to mix a weaker gene and a highly strengthened multicultural, means the genes is strengthened, they're getting the strongest of the best of all the worlds, right, is coming. So into that genetic structure. That's how come you're getting that. So when you study racism, right, and races and so forth, you understand that it's actually a social construct that was just a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand years old, right? A few thousand. And originally, if you go into biological science and genetic science, there's no such thing as race, right? Really, right? Because this is just different genetic. The people just have different, exhibition of the gene. So the same. So in South Africa, for example, we have the mixed race, right? So it's very common. Parents of mixed race, they can be like slightly darker in complexion, both of them, and the child can come out like pure crystal white, right? Not white as in the paper white, but like a Caucasian white, right? As a white thing, and can pass off as white, right? So in South Africa, so a lot of people, they meet South African, European, they say it's the white South Africans, right? Especially apartheid in the early 1900s, right, was implemented as a segregation between race groups, that the whites were kept separately, and it was against the law for those of the non-white group to have any intimate relationship with someone who's a white. You'll put in prison for that, right? And they kept the society separate, schooling separate. They didn't want them to mix and and tinge or tarnish that. They wanted to preserve the sovereignty right? If that's going to be the right word, because they felt they the ruling class, and their genetic, because they didn't want to change it, and it's not a it's not a dominant gene, the white skin color or lighter skin color. Darker skin color is dominant over the lighter skin color. So they didn't want to mix it with the the darker skin color. So whoever looked like a Caucasian, they called them whites. So because this is my own country, and if you read the history of the country, especially read books, fictional books by Andre Brink, right? Andre, and the surname is Brink. So you get an idea from his fiction of what, based on historical events, right? Based on this apartheid culture and the mixing of races, you find that some parents of mixed race, when they saw the child looks white, so they will get him adopted into homes, or put him or train him into the culture of the so-called white people of the time, and then they will tell him not to come to their home and to live in their culture and pass off as white. And when they giving you IDs and so forth, they can pass as white. But if you take a person who looks like a white South African, right, and you do a genetic test, 99.9999%, you're going to find other genetics that is not related to skin color, to other things that comes from the original African culture, and come from the Malaysian culture, and maybe come from the Indian cultures as well, right? And of course, it's a Portuguese culture, and Italian culture and French, but we're talking mainly from a racist perspective, right? So my friend in London, he said, I met a lot of South Africans that are, what he calls white South Africans, in London, but he found them to be very racist. I said, they are not whites. You just do a genetic, they are mixed race. 99.99%, if they from original, multiple generations South Africa, they are mixed, right? Ask them to do a genetic test, they will not do. Because you're going to find out that they actually, they got Zulu blood in them, or Sutu, or the Khoi, right, from the Cape. You have to understand, the Dutch came into South Africa in 1652 or 1653, and the person who was leading the party that came and made a settlement in South Africa in that time, in Cape Town, because the Dutch East India Company was a shipping company that had a trade route via ship going through past Africa to go to India, because they couldn't go on land because of all the robberies in the Middle East when they had to cross the Middle Eastern region, that they're getting robbed by the Alibabas and, and the Fatih thieves, right? Across that. So it's safer to go by ship, because they're getting a lot of wealth and trading, and they're bringing it back. And a halfway point to stop was in Cape Town, so because the travel was too long, and the sailors used to get ill, illness called scurvy, due to not having fresh fruit and vegetables, eating only seafoods, or and so forth. And they need to take a break, for their long-term health. So they created that station there. When they created that, it was mainly males that were there. And of course, males are biological in nature. You have needs, right? Sexual needs. And they started to have relations with the indigenous tribes that were found in the African tribes, or the Bushman tribe, right? The Khoi, and other African tribes that were found there. And then they had children, and that's why the colored or the mixed race population, which was classed as colored officially in the early 1900s, was like 25% of the population of the country, right? Or 1/3 of the population. They classed them either as white, black, or colored. And then they had the smaller ethnicities like Malaysian or Indian or Chinese that came in later, and eventually they adopted Chinese under white, right? In the early 1900s, they created this, right? this classification. But before that, now coming back to several hundred years, 1650s, these people are having, and then the children are all, colored, right? So light skin color, mixed skin color, and they mixed this thing. Then they got worried because they were very authentically Christian, and they believed it's a sin to have sex out of marriage. So they brought women from their home country, which is Netherlands, right, from Holland, and they brought women for them to marry, and then they gave them farms and property and so forth, and then they married, and then they used the native African people as slaves because they were not very well educated and they were more primitive compared to the Dutch culture original. So they used them as slaves, but it was common for them to sleep with the slaves because it was part of the culture in the ancient times that you own slaves and you can use them, as concubines, right? And it goes back to, this is a very, subject that Christianity doesn't like to talk, and they get very offended and so forth. But let's take a real story that no one can deny, like the Prophet Abraham in the biblical tradition, that his wife was Sarah, and they couldn't bear children. Sarah couldn't bear any children to Abraham, according to the Bible. And then she gave, according to the story, that she said, okay, you can sleep with my slave because he needs to have a descendant, that, to create a descendant. And they normally, because he was a leader among people at the time, so they probably had very beautiful slaves as well, right? And then the slave was Hajar, right? Or Hagar. They call Hagar or Hajar, right? Depending, which tradition. But the original, go to original Aramaic or Hebrew traditions and so forth, calling it Hajar, right? And then he had Ismail. I don't know what they call it in I think but in the Islamic tradition they call Ismail, right? Or Ismail, right? And he was the product of the union. He was the child of Abraham and the slave. But then miraculously Sarah could conceive after that, and then she had her child, and I think it is Jacob, right? Jacob was the child that she had. So he is the prophet Jacob, and Ismail is the prophet Ismail, right? They were both prophets from the descendants of Abraham. Now, once Sarah had her own child, and a pure, that she is not a slave, right? So they call him the pure race, and the other one, slave, is like a not a pure race, and preference is given to the non-slave because they are higher class. Slave is a slave class, right? So she requested that this slave must be banished to a region in the desert, right, in Saudi Arabia, and that tradition and the descendants of Ismail were the Arab nation. So it's a mixed nation between the original Abraham, which was light-skinned and fair, and no one calls, like the Jewish people, we don't know, like they can pass off as Caucasian, right? And then the Jewish religion, so there was this conflict, from that time, right? And because of, the difference in colors and so forth. Then we get in South Africa the Bible, right? The Bible of the Dutch people, the people who identify as Dutch in the apartheid time, is called the Nederlandse Gereformeerde Kerk, the Netherlands Reformed Church, right? And in their Bible, the original Bibles in their Bible, they say that the people dark in complexion are slaves and the people white in complexion are superior. It says that clearly in that Bible, right? So now in modern time, they're changing it. But if you go and look at this, originally, part of the religion they believe, so they practice that, white is superior to this thing. So now coming back to this mixing, in the 1600s, and they're bringing the original, they still slept with their slaves, and they created this mixed race. And between the mixed race, some of them produced children when they mixed. Two people of mixed race married each other, and maybe they had 8 children. Of the 8 children, one could pass off as white. Will have straight hair and beautiful and light in skin complexion, because it depends how the genes mixed. The dominant, because they got a complete mixture of genes, the people of mixed race, right? So many people, they didn't know who's white and who's true white and who's not true white. And then those that passed off as white from the mixed race, they went and married people who were white, because they looked white, and why not? Because the shortage of women, right? So they married and say, no, my wife is white, right? Because she looked white. And there's only a limited number of women that was brought from, Holland. And then they started the genetics. So as hundreds of years is passing, so, the people that look white is not pure white. Because they exhibiting the qualities that look white, and they decide to separate, make a clear separation to preserve these genes that are looking white. So it doesn't tinge with the non-white genes, right? Because these are dominant genes and inferior genes, and they want to preserve it. The only way to preserve it is to keep that clear line. So they created the apartheid rule, but they are a product of mixing and crystallization, over the years. So if you take them and compare them to, because they speaking the language from, they call it the fatherland, right? In South Africa, the fatherland, Holland is the fatherland, and Netherlands is and they're speaking that language 90% original Dutch, right? So and they call it in South Africa Afrikaans, because it's mixed with a lot of African words as well. And it's slightly different. But if someone from Holland speaks, I can understand what they're saying. It's not very clear, but I can definitely understand what is being spoken, right? I just have to get used to watching their movies or their programs, and then I'll understand fully the Dutch language, right? But in South Africa, they're speaking a form of the Dutch language, right? A variation, a South African variation of it. And so they want to identify, and they keep the culture and they identify as that. And they say, no, I am pure this and pure that, right? And I am, white, but they're not really, they mix race, right? In reality, in South Africa, they're not the original Dutch genetic. If you take the genetic study of the original Dutch genes, the South African is not going to be pure, right? The pure will come from originally in Netherlands. In South Africa, it's mixed. So if they can look like white South Africans, they're not white. They're mixed race, right? So even Indians were brought into South Africa in 1860, right? And now it's 1926, 104, so 166 years ago, right? And there were 2 shiploads. They were brought to the KwaZulu-Natal region, and they formed a community there. And they brought them because the indigenous African people of South Africa were not as hardworking as the people in India, and it was the British Empire that was ruling in South Africa at the time, and they had a sugar cane plantation, and they were also ruling in India at the time, right? the same British Empire, right? So they found it's going to be more productive and profitable because they found the workers in India to be better workers, more hardworking, and maybe going to be more productive. Let's bring a shipload of them and offer them something good and good incentives. And they offered the Indians good incentives and brought them. And when they brought them, they were a small minority group of people. Now the original culture of native Africans of KwaZulu-Natal is the Zulu. Now you watch movies like Shaka Zulu. It's a very proud nation. They are very strong, average 6 foot tall, and extremely powerful nation, a warrior nation, right? Like they are built for fighting and very aggressive people, right? You think these aggressive people are going to take mildly to someone else treated better because when the Indian people came, the sugarcane industry started to flourish, and they started to get more benefits, and they were allowed to drive cars and get their own property, and were paid better, and they felt that these people are getting the native Zulu nation feeling that these Indian people are coming, they are foreigners and they're getting treated better than us. This is our land, our property. Who are these strangers? And they are getting money and living better and living, like superior, and using us as maids, right? And as gardeners and so forth. No, and they get angry. We will demolish this race and get rid of them, send them back to the country. So they used to have riots. And you must know the Indian population were maybe like 10,000, and the original Zulu population were maybe like 10 million, right? So they will come in a group, a small group of maybe a few hundred people in this village, and then they will come 10,000 for the few hundred, and they will come raiding in a way to teach them a lesson. They will come beating them and raping all the women. They use the raping culture, right, to really get the people the fear of this thing and to run away. And also they found that they want to dominate this race like that. They were a very weak race, and they preferred that method, right, of domination. And so this Indian culture, most of the women that were raped, right, mass raped, right, when they come, it's like a locust swarm coming through. So some of them got pregnant from it, of course, right? There was no contraception and condoms and all in those years, right? And these people are coming, on a war strategy. Especially when they drink on a Friday night, right? So everyone gets paid on a Friday, and then they get drunk. When they get drunk, they get randy. Say, okay, let's go and raid this Indian village, and then let's find this Indian woman, and they just raping them, right? Left, right, and so they get pregnant. So because the Indian genetic is so strong, the children start looking like Indian. But some of them start looking African, like a little bit African as well. And some children look completely, the one that looks completely African, so they used to give it for adoption. And the one that looks more or less Indian, they'll keep it and as their own child. And they were normally, married at a young age, and they were normally wives. They don't know whether it was the husband's child or the child, the product of a rape. So when they see when the child is born, how it looks, it's okay, must be my husband's child, not from. And then the husbands are going working in the fields during the day, and the women are working at home, and they're getting raped, and then they're afraid to tell the husband, because the husband will beat them to death if they know the wife was raped as well. You just have to understand that culture at that time. And then they're passing off. So if we look at now current day, so people say, no, you look, when I was in Dubai, no, you are Indian. And, they start speaking to me in Hindi, and I don't understand any Indian language, right? And I say, no, I'm not Indian, And even my ex-wife, she used to laugh when we were in the taxi when they start speaking to me in Hindi. And she burst out. My wife was Moroccan. And she used to burst out laughing so loud and giggling that, because I explained that the narrative, right? So the people absolutely refuse to believe me, right? They just say, you are Indian, we say you're Indian. Then I can show my uncles, right? Some uncles, if you see the photo of now, he's passed away, he looks pure Zulu, pure, there's no Indian in him. And then his wife, my aunt, looks pure Indian, right? No Zulu in her. Their children, they got daughters. The daughter and his son, and the uncle who looks pure Zulu, looks pure, they will never say the Zulu, looks Indian. And his one daughter looks so beautiful, right? Long hair and looks like a model, right? She's probably around 5'7" tall as well. And that pure, beautiful Zulu, but 100% you say Indian. No Zulu, but her father is 100% Zulu looking, right? And in our relatives, we're getting all this, and you find them, then they also the Indian culture want to identify as Indian, right? And then they try to not try to steer away, from people who don't look Indian and who are in darker complexion and so forth. So there is that type of segregation and racism. That's why I say it's a social construct. So the breaking of the mula, the root chakra, you're breaking this type of identification. So why I'm saying mixed race South Africa, I don't identify as a South African. I don't feel myself as South African. I don't feel myself mixed race or any race. I had relationships with all race groups, right? I had the most amazing relationship with the French lady, pure French, right? France. I had relationship with Italian people, Australian, pure, German, blonde, blue-eyed, right? And a lot of them, they don't want to have I know when I'm talking and I'm flirting with anyone, like how I would flirt with anyone, I don't feel anything, but majority of them feel that they are white and they get offended that I'm, talking to them that way, or they feel like, who am I, to speak to them, and I'm a darkie, right? Or dark skin. But I get the vibe who's attracted to me and who's not, and who doesn't have that segregation in the heart, or who maybe have a fetish, right? Some people, have their own preconceptions of what a darker complexion, a woman, a Caucasian woman fantasizes this muscular, or the strong, darker complexion guy, and she fantasizes this. It's like a fantasy, and they, the blood gets hot when they see, and I can identify that class of women. And some are just very intelligent, and they talk. They don't. They see everyone equally. They don't say you are darker complexion and you are inferior to me. Right? They are, but it's a minority class of people, right? But when this chakra physically breaks, and it can be physically broken to a thing called, in the yogic tradition, Shaktipat. Shaktipat, you could have heard of it, where someone who's advanced, like a guru, he'll infuse his energy into you through your forehead region, and it's like an electrical energy that's very strong, and it pushes down very hard, and it breaks. Why they do it to the forehead? It breaks the knot in your forehead chakra, in your solar plexus chakra, and your root chakra broken. And after that, you become open to being more, you start being more open-minded, but your cultural influence and your memory still keeps you in that, but you start to become a little bit more open-minded. But when you start studying and you advance and you develop your root chakra more and more after you broke the knot, right? Then these social constructs totally gets obliterated, and you feel nothing. You can live, in China, you can live in the Middle East, you can live amongst the Middle Eastern, you can marry a Moroccan woman. I mean, I've got 6 divorces, different cultures. My 4th wife, half Chinese, half Indian. 3rd wife from the Pakistani culture, the Pathan sect. They identify as Pathan, right? The Khan, the warrior class of the Pakistani. It's a special sect of the Pakistan region, right? Second wife comes from Jewish origin, right? Jewish origin, but also South African, so mixed race, but of mother is pure, from Jewish culture. Father was full mixed Christian culture. So, but she identified more, in the Jewish culture, and she looked, light skin color and absolutely beautiful, and, and so forth. And first wife looked more like a South Indian, right? Pure, but not pure, but she was very tall. She was my height, right? And she had the physique, I would say, of a Caucasian woman, very beautiful, firm, lanky and amazing, physique. And that's what attracted me to her, right? Amazing body, right? absolutely chiseled like a model's body, right? And although I would say, okay, we won't go too deep into that, right? I know it's very tough, but absolutely amazing. And the physical relationship was mind blowing, right? It's like it's beyond beauty, right? The physical body, but the face was very dark, and she had a complex. She felt she's dark skinned, she's not very beautiful and all that, but she had amazing, fine features, right? A fine, long, thin, like a Caucasian nose, you would say, and the height and the physique and so forth, and the way she spoke and the accent, and education and a thinking modality as well, right? Was more, but very, dark in complexion. And my fifth wife was Moroccan, and more from the original Berber. Her mother was original Berber. Her father was the mixed Moroccan, which is the mix between the Arab and the French and Spanish people. And her mother was pure Berber, the original people before the invasion of the Arabs and the Spanish and the French. Her mother comes from that culture, the Berber culture, the original African Berber culture. Very beautiful people, light in skin color, the Berber, very amazing personality. And the sixth wife was Moroccan as well, but looked more like a Russian, right? The features was a Russian, very fine Russian. If you see her, they will not say she's Moroccan or Arab. As does not have an Arab complexion, doesn't have an olive complexion, a pure milk white this thing, and looks pure Russian, can pass off as a Russian, right? And very fine hair, beautiful and amazing, amazing actually, like a Barbie doll feature, right? Very beautiful, right? So I didn't go for looks or anything, right? You could say they're all diverse. I just wanted someone that I could get along with, and this thing. I didn't care whether they were dark in color. First was very dark, sixth wife was very light, right? The fourth wife was medium. The one like Pakistani and so forth was brownish in complexion, right? And the fourth wife was tall, almost my height, and very looks different. Didn't look. She identified more with the Indian culture, but you can see she's different from the Indians. She was tall, and a way of thinking was very structured, and she was a business owner, and not like how the Indian people would think, and got along very well. And the reason I married her, we got along like, extremely well. Even with everyone, we got along, there was that thing. But due to being involved in Kriya and yoga practice, and I'm fast forwarding my evolution, I evolved myself and became someone different. So I am evolving at a very fast pace because I'm doing advanced practices. When you're doing advanced yogic practices, you start changing from a mouse into a giraffe, from a giraffe into a lion, from a lion to a dinosaur, from a dinosaur into a tiger, from a tiger into a demon, from a demon into an angel, from an angel into a goddess, a god, or things like that. You like changing and transforming, the different colors and different versions according to your evolution, because you're evolving at a very fast pace, right? So it became like oil and water, and it is a side effect. You have to accept that even your clothes, forget the wives, even my family, my friends and all, I evolved out of it. It's not like I wrote them off, and it's just like you can't get along, and you come to a conflict situation that things get said and done that can't be unsaid and undone, and you can no longer keep that person in your inner circle when they did start doing things. But there is that conflict because that people are still identifying as that particular person and that culture and that construct, and you are open, and they feel you are same as them because that's how you was, and now you changed, and they can't accept it, and they fight back against it. There comes that conflict and leads to heavy heated arguments. So you can't stay in originally it's like harmony, and then it becomes extreme arguments, and you can't live in a toxic situation. So this happened with family members, with social members, with classes, with friends, extended, and even the type of businesses that are doing, evolved over the years, right? And the type of money that I was earning, and the different groups and my circles of influence all changed, right? You are the sum of the 5 people that you know. So this is, so mentally you can break, because you are not this race or that. And I found it's more liberating not to identify. And when someone, I of course I'm saying now I'm originally South African, and because I have to see it before I said I get angry when someone says Indian or dark or black or white, and even watch some of the American movies, they say I'm black, and I'm white, and we are discriminated against and so forth. Why are you identifying with the discriminated? The people discriminating against, not all people, but the people has got a psychosis, right? That's what I believe. They have, that is the construct, that is they are that. You in life, it's like you get the different animals, right? When you meet people, you just have to identify what kind of animal is this person. Try to compare him. Is he like a sheep, or is he like a lion, or is he a giraffe, or is he this thing? So you find some people that identify, we as white, and I am this thing, and I'm not racist, and I treat my black brothers as equal, and I don't discriminate. Why are you calling them black brothers? Why are you identifying them with the skin color? There are people who identify as Caucasian can be darker in complexion than those who identify as black, can be lighter in complexion, sometimes more beautiful, right? Especially in mixed races and so forth, right? You get some amazingly beautiful people, and some people very dark in complexion, supermodels. Naomi Campbell, amazing example. How beautiful. In South Africa, the women in South Africa are rated in the top 10 most beautiful women of the world, right? How amazing. I had some relationships with some who look pure African, right? Pure, but so beautiful, regal, and tall, and the features are so amazing, man. Beauty out of this world. And some, they are of mixed origin, and there is some, you see, the beauty is so unique. You can't compare, incomparable, right? And so this root chakra is something psychologically that's making you identify that you are American, you're a European, you are Caucasian, you are Indian, you are black. You're none of all these things. You are human, right? You belong to the human species, which is different from the animal species. So you can go and have an intimate relation with, let's say, with your sheep, right? Because in the ancient time with the farmers, so it was not uncommon in South Africa for the men in the farms were lonely, where they didn't have access to women and so forth, that they go and having, intimate relationship with the, they're having sex with the animal, and they called it a crime, bestiality, a category, that it was deplorable and against the morals of a Christian culture, right? Because it was based on a Christian culture, right? Anti-Christian culture, and it was punishable by heavy prison sentences and lashings and so forth, right? But they can't produce a child. So you try to merge a human gene with another species. It's not going to mix. You're going to try to make a mix between a human and a wolf, right? It's not going to happen. Between even a human and a chimpanzee, it's not going to happen. You're going to get half chimpanzee, and the closest relative in the next species in the evolutionary cycle is the chimpanzee, right? So it's not going to create a mix between a human nature. But human to human, you're going to have children, right? Irrespective of, the skin color. They're different color, they look different. And doesn't mean one is superior, because I found a lot of people, darker skin color, more beautiful, more intelligent than those of, it's just people's psychosis, right? They want to, it's like a tribe culture, pack culture. They want to belong to a certain tribe and identify with a certain pack. This is the breaking of the root chakra, right? Sorry for spending so much time on that. So when that gets broken, this social construct starts disintegrating. First thing is you become open-minded, and as you advance more and more in your practice of kriya or meditation or breath work or whatever, or hatha yoga, whichever method of yoga you choose, or a combination of all, right? Eventually it becomes so foolish it's impossible for you to even think that way, because your root chakra is completely broken, and you can decide that you feel nothing to be a cleaner, and you feel nothing, to go and deliver pizzas. And like when I left, the legal profession, the highest I earned in a consultation was equivalent of $70,000 for a consultation. And I went self-employed, and I was earning less than even the lowest paid employee for 6 years in a row. A lot of people are laughing, why don't you go back to law? You're earning so well. You're living a king's life. You're making $70,000 for one consultation, right? You only need to do one consultation a month is enough. In those years, like over 30 years ago, right? Which was a lot of money in my country, at that time. And I said, no, I come to this. I didn't feel, because I just created a new mission, new goal, and I will develop. And I knew I needed to adjust and change and adopt new habits and new knowledge and new skills, to master it, and I just haven't mastered it yet. So I have to keep changing until I master it and be successful. And I did. It took me 6 years later. But in that 6-year period, to make additional money, I went door to door knocking, selling toys, selling dinner sets, selling this thing. People, children's toys, right? For $1 I'm selling, right? I'm making $70,000, wearing a suit and tie in a, office, consulting with a client, and then going door knocking and in informal attire. And I didn't feel small, because my root chakra was broken long ago, right? I didn't feel, other people saw me as small and treated me as small, yes, and I didn't feel diminished by their opinion. Even if the whole world thought me, so I didn't feel, I have very strong self-esteem. I didn't base my self-esteem on my income. I said, no, I will earn more. I became an entrepreneur, I'll go for it. And I will succeed in it, and I will earn more. And I feel I'm superior to them because I am more evolved. I had an experience, and they are restricted by a construct, by a limitation in the thought processes. They are limited in the thinking. And that limitation that they have, I've broken it. So of course I'm feeling so the person who is more intelligent, the one, he should know when to walk away. And when a child screams at you and hits you that you're not buying that sweets, and swearing you and calling you bad names, and it's a 3-year-old child beating you, you get angry and as an adult and give it a slap. You laugh. It's a child. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand, and he'll forget after, and you don't take it seriously. So like that, when people, class me in terms of my income, or class me in terms of my nationality, or in terms of my passport. And when I was 19 already, people said, why don't you go to the US? And, you can, that time, even now, we get a 10-year multiple entry visa to the US. And I can go, at that time, I could have went there and, as a medical student, and become an exchange student because I had an American scholarship, right? And I could transfer my scholarship, to the US. They said, why don't you go? I said, no, I'm happy in my country. I don't, why should I change country? I'm okay. I'm free in this country, and I love the country. I love the multicultural nature of the people, and I don't find a reason to want to change. And of course, I've traveled over 100 countries. I've got students in over 100 countries and so forth, to date, and traveled extensively and so, but not because I was searching for who I am and so forth. It's just, there was a reason for me to go, and people wanted, and I stayed, and I wanted to teach, and I just moved, like that. And I adopted. I'm not even from the Middle Eastern culture, but I took up that religion at the age of 38, and learned the culture inside out, and am considered part of that culture by people from the Arab countries, because when we talk, from a cultural perspective, I can talk the lingo, right? Not the language, but the lingo, the cultural habits and so forth, right? Is unique. There's certain unique habits, to certain cultures. So I understand that, but I have no problem with other cultures as well, and I can adjust and so forth, right? And, that's how I can have, relationship with other things. So let's move on to the heart chakra, breaking that knot, like psychologically, is not the heart chakra, the solar plexus. Solar plexus chakra is in charge of your self-esteem, your ego, your status, right? Your status in society, not your fundamental identification, but your higher sense of, like, you worked hard, you became the director of a company, or you belong to this family or this noble class, or you're an American, you got this, and you're not from a third, you're from a first world country, and you can just go anywhere, and you got this type of income, level, and you feel you're superior, to someone else. This self-esteem, and when you become the CEO of a company, of a Fortune 500, oh, you're a billionaire, right? You are now, your company has become $1 trillion company. You get puffed up, and everyone worships you also. Oh, he's a trillionaire, or he's a multi-billionaire. And, you become like a god in society, and you feel that you're a god. So I never identified with my wealth or money or anything, and many times I gave millions, up to $50 million in value in terms of properties, and so I gave, right? I gave away when someone was in need. I emptied my bank account to solve their problem, and left with nothing, and I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything to go from South Africa living like a king, earning $1 million a month, and then go to Dubai to learn the international market and live like poorer than because you are struggling to make a deal, learning a new market, new culture, and you're getting cheated all the time. And for 9 years, I was living in very poor conditions, and I couldn't live in bed spaces. I tried living in a bed space to cut my costs, but I just couldn't live, under those conditions, because people, they from other cultures, they will eat and leave the food, on the table, and just cover it, and it get filled with cockroaches overnight, like swarming over it, and then they'll come and they'll just chase the cockroaches away, and then they'll remove the lid and eat the food. How do they know a cockroach didn't manage to go through or not, right? Oh my God. And then when I first tried a bed space, I said, let me cut my cost, right? I lived in a partition, right? Because they have partitions, independent, I can close the door and be independent, right? So I stayed there, and then I saw cockroaches there. Automatically, I went to the supermarket and I bought the insect killer, right? And I came and I sprayed it. Oh my God, the people got the smell of what I sprayed, and I was happy I killed everything, right? And I bought the odorless version of it, but there is some odor, especially, the people in the next units and so forth, they wanted to call the police on me that I'm poisoning them to death. I said, my friend, this is meant to kill a cockroach, not you. You're not a cockroach. You're not going to die from this. And this is a vermin. It's a pest. I rather spray it and live with the smell. And I'm coming from South Africa. No one died from spraying it, and we didn't shorten our lifespan, and we didn't know people getting, any medical conditions, from killing cockroaches, with this insecticide. Yes, it can be very harmful, certain chemicals, but this is not designed to kill you, right? It can be. That's the purpose. It's being sold in a supermarket, right? There's a purpose for it. But they push back, I don't want to live with this thing, and they are happy to live with it. They rather live with the cockroaches than spray and smell it because they feel it's going to harm their health, and they're afraid to die, right? Man, I can't live with this type of creatures and the cockroaches. And in my office, when I go into it, I know, like the staff is going to eat, in the kitchen area, and it's going to be full. I see cockroaches when people, I just see one, immediately I call the pest control. And I used to give a 2-day weekend to my staff, right? So on the weekend was a Friday and Saturday. So in Dubai, so the first day of the week was a Monday to, so Thursday afternoon I'll call the pest control people. So they will come and completely fumigate and lock it up. So on Sunday morning when we come and open, so I come early because I normally used to be at work by 6:30 in the morning, right? And the staff only arrive at 10 because I used to start officially 10 a.m. So I'll go and open the windows, and because the staff are afraid of the smell, that they may die from it and all that, right? I come open the windows and air the office and remove everything. And we see all the dead things. And then people can eat food and they go in the kitchen. You're not going to see this crawling stuff. This cockroaches walk crawling everywhere. Right? I don't want to live with them. And I lived independently because of that reason. I didn't want to stay in partitions or beds because I don't want to live, with cockroaches and, all these things. Now, that I'm blind, sometimes I feel an insect, crawling on me. I don't know what it is. I just have to go and, push it away. And there was one area in South Africa that has cockroaches, quite big. And I felt something crawling on me, and I pushed it out, and I pushed it with the aggressive force, and it hit a wooden wardrobe, on the left, and I heard that slight thud. And I knew it was this massive cockroach that was crawling on me. Because I'm sitting in darkness, I don't need to put a light on, right? And now with the light on because I'm recording the video, and it's starting to get dark outside, right? So there needs to be light. But once I finish the video, I'll put it off because I don't need light. I can look directly bring a bright light, spotlight in front of me, I can see nothing. I can look directly into the sun and see nothing, right? So this thing of identification of who you are and your self-esteem, I felt nothing to go from driving 5 luxury cars living in a, upper middle class area with a, manicured garden and a perfect, amazing swimming pool, which had a waterfall feature, and then going and living, trying a bed space and driving the cheapest car. And I remember when I hired the car, it was the first car I hired was a Toyota, I think it's a Toyota Corolla, from the car hire company, because it was cheaper. It was like around, in dirham at that time, around 1,500 dirham a month or something, right? To hire a Toyota Corolla, and to hire a Range Rover was 30,000 dirham a month, right? So I said, okay, because I'm trying to, build up a new thing, let me conserve my overhead cost, right? I'll go, let me drive the normal car, right? The Toyota. And I remember when I drove it, man, I got a back pain. I said, no, I don't identify my self-esteem with what I drive. It doesn't matter. Now I'm trying to rebuild a new business, and I don't know when I'm going to get an income again. I have to cut down my expenses, right? So I felt nothing about driving a Toyota. I didn't feel my self-esteem was crushed, right? But what I found is my back was so sore from the first day because I was spoiled with the luxury seats of the high-end vehicle. And one of the first things I experienced when I became wealthy and started to drive high-end vehicles, that when you're driving like long distances, or because I was selling, houses, and I was driving my car for like 12 to 15 hours a day. I was in the car going from one location to another, this meeting to another meeting, and I wanted something that's not going to create a back pain. I wanted something that's very comfortable. And I found that with the high-end vehicles, you don't feel tired at the end of the day, as compared to when you're driving in a normal car seat, right? Compared to in a luxury car seat. So when I drive like a long distance and 9 hours, consistently, I notice, man, I'm not feeling tired like how I used to, in a normal car seat. A big difference. And when I bought a high-end mattress, when I could afford a high-end, I said a mattress is a mattress, you're sleeping in a bed, right? But when I bought a high-end king-size mattress, the most expensive mattress, and then I slept on it and I got up next morning, I felt like it was a sponge that absorbed all the stress from my body. A distinct difference in my restfulness in sleeping on a high-end mattress compared to a low-end mattress, right? The feeling of it. So I didn't identify that, oh, I'm now, I will not buy the low-class mattress, I'll buy. That's when I had money, I will always buy a high-end mattress because I see the effect, the difference in your restfulness, in your quality of your sleep, right? So that's why I respect, and I will save money and buy a good quality. And I understood, like with shoes, I like the Clarks shoes, right? The Clarks of London. And no, I didn't want to go, which is the $2,000 shoe and which is a $2,000 suit upwards, right? Minimum $2,000 or something. I saw something look nice, amazing. The fabric was amazing and so forth. I will buy it, right? Never mind it is a brand name, right? I don't have to go and get a tailor-made one that is bespoke, cut exactly, and that fabric is imported from Switzerland, and the special this thing, and I don't identify with all that, right? But I will dress neatly, something that I like and I feel okay in, and professionally, and the Clark shoes are like I buy it for that, and I can wear, when I wear normal shoes, I feel the difference, the leg pain, So even the shoe that I wear, I pay importance to it for the comfort. So in Dubai, equivalent to the Clarks brand was another unknown, I never heard of that brand before, right? Maybe you guys heard of it, called Echo, ECO, right? And it was equally comfortable, right? And I found it was amazing. But then I did some research, from the sales agent, both from Clarks and Echo. And they said, no, Echo is superior in 1 to 3. It was superior in terms of its comfort and its makeup and the materials from which it was made, right? And then I got respect, and I found no problem, and I bought the Echo brand, right? I wore both the Clarks brand and the Echo brand. I didn't go out looking, but my wives, they wanted like Prada, and they wanted Gucci handbag, and the perfumes. I didn't mind. I'll go and buy them, the brand name perfumes and so forth. But there are some unknown brands, perfume names, because Dubai, you can get all types of perfume. That is so amazing. I buy it for its amazing and long-lasting effect. But generally, the brand names last longer. So if you buy, you're not making a mistake. It's got that amazing scent and it lasts, towards the end of the day, right? Which is why, I would like to buy, but I found certain unknown brands and I use them, and it's amazing smell, right? And it's so cheap. I think maybe even 1% of a brand name, right? And I still got one of those, two of those perfumes with me currently, from the Middle East, that was gifted to me by a friend. So I'm not identifying my self-esteem, my status like that, and I feel nothing to be, earning little to no income in the last 18 months, right? When I'm busy building my YouTube channel, and I knew I have to make sacrifice, I have to live in a small apartment, or cut my overhead expenses, cut my monthly food bill to $20 a month, not because I'm used to not focusing on what the cost. I always eat out. I'll go and eat, in a proper organic foods restaurant or something, or anything, and I felt nothing to spend, a few $100s in a meal, right? Up to, I think we spent up to about $3,000 for a meal for two, right? In Dubai, because you get high-end restaurants, right? Where you can spend like that. And some of the stories I read that in New York City, it's like several thousands of dollars a meal could cost, especially the Langley, right? You can go there and, fine dining and so forth. So I'm not into fine dining and five-star and, trying to use all the different, foods and French cuisine and so forth. I will go to, I went to a 7-star hotel, the Burj Al Arab, right? And ate there. That was a very expensive meal. It cost like 10,000 dirham, which is like $2,500, $2,800, right? a meal for two. And, so, but I didn't identify with that, and I could eat. While I was eating, I felt nothing to have a shawarma in the street, right? And I preferred the grilled chicken and go into the supermarket and get a salad bowl, of different steamed vegetables and so forth. So I would buy a grilled chicken, a full chicken, right? Grilled chicken, because this is common in Dubai. You get the grilled chicken, and then I'll take out the skin and throw it away, and then I'll just have, I'll cut it in half, have half the chicken for my protein, right? And remove the fat and have my vegetables, right? 70% of my plate with raw salads and, vegetables and so forth, cucumber and lettuce and different, basil leaves. I used to love basil and rocket and feta cheese and, all that. So I make the other 70% of my plate that, and this thing, and stay away from, ultra like refined carbs and ultra processed foods and so forth. I felt nothing to go to a supermarket and buy food from a supermarket, because it was a healthier food, right? And I could afford to go and sit in a high-end restaurant as well. I ate according to what I felt like, and I wanted to eat healthy foods, and it was nothing. When I took people to entertain them, I said, okay, let's go. Then I know they will not eat supermarket food, right? And I'll buy from the supermarket, sit in the food court, on the table in the food court, and eat in the food court, and I felt nothing. But when I take a guest, then I will take them to a restaurant of their choice, right? Because they want to eat in this type of restaurant, and they'd feel a bit uncomfortable eating in a food court, right? Because they feel they are that certain status. And even the movies, I didn't feel awkward to go to a normal movie and to the cinema privé, right? Cinema privé, you're paying like 20 times more in price, right? But it's the experience, and you got more comfortable seats, and you got your own blanket you could put over you, and you can recline, and you can press a button and someone will bring, whatever you want, during the course of a movie. You want a coffee, you want a drink, or there's a 3-course meal, right? You can choose a 3-course meal to serve you, and when you go to the toilets, it's like a 5-star toilet, and heated towels, that you can, individual napkins, right? Heated cloth napkins that's, rolled up and, washed clean. You use it once and just throw it in the basket, and you got, your soap and your lotion, your moisturizer to put in. It's a nice experience, right? To have it. And when you're flying, business class or first class, you just, you can get anything that you want. You just call the attendant anytime you want a drink, or you want this, you want to eat this or eat that, and you're treated, and there's not a crowding, and it's more comfortable seating, and it's a better experience, right? Not like you feel, I don't want to mix with the lower class and so forth. So when you break that, you feel nothing about both. And last 18 months and so forth, I mean, my asset value is high, right? I'm a black card, metal black card holder, right? But my cash flow is zero, right? Zero income, right? And I don't have any cash as well. I'm living, on a shoestring budget, right? But I'm not feeling like I'm a poor person and everything. And I see other people, they look down on me. It's okay, that's their psychosis. And they feel like, I'm traveling with the Uber, and I don't have, a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce, because I'm going by Uber, and instead of using a first-class flight, I'm taking a bus, right? Long distance ride, because it's cheaper by bus, and I'm using the cheapest bus, and I'm sitting in the bus. I don't feel I'm a smaller person, because that thing is broken. So you can psychologically don't identify with the status, right? And when you stop identify, your heart opens up fully. You become selfless. You can love someone when they do something irrespective of their color. Or, there was a lady when I visited Cape Town, and I went to ask, because I needed to transfer some money from London into South Africa in Cape Town. and I didn't know the procedure and where was the nearest Western Union and so forth. So someone directed me. So I said, let me go and find out what's the procedure, to get it, because I didn't have my, they needed that time. I am South African, but I was out of the country for so long. I didn't have the original card ID, and I had my when I came out, because I had my passport, and my passport was expired after I entered, and I got a temporary ID. From while I'm waiting, it takes like 6 to 8 weeks to get the card ID, right? So I was still waiting for that, and I went to find out whether I can, receive money on that from the Western Union in that branch, right? Some banks will not open a bank account without your card ID, but some banks will open with the temporary ID, right, that I got over the counter from the Home Affairs Department. So I went to ask this lady, and her name is Alexis, right? And I'm completely blind. So I use Uber Assist. So there's a Uber Assist that is for disabled people, that they will come specifically to your door, because I'll stand outside the door of the apartment I was living, right, in the along the street, and then the Uber is like parked a bit to tell the information that I'm a blind person. They need to park and come fetch me and go, take me to the car, because I can't walk I don't know where I am, and I'm all alone, right? So I know how to walk out of my apartment and stand outside the door, and then I will maybe walk into the street and get knocked, by a car, and I don't know where I'm standing and so forth. So I have to stand near the door. So the Uber will leave me. I tell him to take me to the place, to stop, at my destination, get out of the car, take me to the entrance. So he took me to the entrance of the Western Union there. And then at the entrance, the attendant said, the lady was working there, her name was Alexis. And she saw me, she immediately came and she attended to me. And she said what I want. And she was very friendly and all that. And then I said, okay, I'll come. Now I can transfer the money from London. I know I can get it, right? So she said they will accept that ID, and it's an acceptable form of ID, and I can transfer, collect my money. From there, so okay, I'll get my friend to transfer the money from London, and I'll come and collect it shortly, right? Maybe that afternoon, or as soon as my friend is available, and I can get the funds to him, and then he can transfer it. So I said, okay, let me call the Uber, and then they show me which direction. It's a very small office, so I just wanted to know which side is the door, the main door. It was just like about 3 or 4 steps away, but she was behind a glass door counter. So when she came to assist me, she came out of it to bring me in, and then she went back and sat while I was waiting for the Uber when I called the Uber. And she said, no, you don't wait outside, wait inside, sit inside. When the Uber comes, then she'll let me to go. She'll show me, where's the exit. I said, okay, I'll sit, and then I called the Uber, now the app tells you when the Uber is going to be near, right? Like 2 minutes away. I said, no, the Uber is very near. Can you take me, just show me where's the door. She said, no, I will not show you where's the door. I will take you there. Now there's a line of people she's attending to, and she's the only attendant, for the Western Union. She left her work and left the people to wait, and she came, took me by hand. I said, no, it's okay, I can just go, because just leave me on the pavement, the driver will see me. She said, no, and she waited with me till the Uber came, and then she took me by hand and put me inside the car, and she felt heartfelt for me that I am blind, and didn't want me. She knew I could do it alone, but she wanted to make me feel very comfortable, and I could feel a heartfelt, pure love, And these type of people are so rare. There are people who are helpful, not many, but these are amazing people. I'll never forget her. I wanted to, send her a gift and so forth. Then I thought she might think I'm being weird, and coming on to her and so forth. And I didn't find it appropriate. I said, okay, when I meet with her more often, and then, just thank her casually and so forth, then if she see me sending chocolates or a gift or something, this thing. But I never forget her. And she has got that kind heart. So that kind heart, open-mindedness, that looking upon you, irrespective of your disability, And she don't know my wealth level or something. She may be thinking I'm on benefits and, a poor person, but she treated me like a king, you know, not in terms of my financial status. So she is not doing yoga. I know she's a South African woman, the culture she came from, right? She's coming from a Christian background. She's not doing yoga or mindfulness or meditation, I'm sure, right, from how she's talking. But she's pure loving person. So you don't have to do yoga to break the second knot. It's psychologically break these constructs of judging people by their financial level. They can tomorrow become the wealthiest person, and you can be the wealthiest person. You can lose all your wealth. You can liquidate your wealth and become. I saw people in Dubai, billionaire status, lost everything, became in the street. They didn't have money for food. They didn't have money for rent. And they owned a building and they went insolvent during the 2008 crisis. And they can't leave the country until they pay the debt. And they were struggling, like begging and trying to sell perfumes in the street. No one was prepared to help them, And just to get and living in bed spaces and so forth, right? Billionaire. I saw that, right? So that is the breaking of the second knot, the self-esteem knot, which can be physically broken. When you break it and do the practices, you automatically comes like that selfless, and you show love. Like when someone was chopping a tree, I said, why are you chopping the tree? What did the tree do? He said, no, it's growing too big and the monkey is gonna come. I said, what's wrong with the monkeys? No, they cause a lot of mischief and this and that. I said, don't you feel anything? I went to visit my mom, and in my childhood we had an avocado pear tree, and it was, in my high school days, it used to produce so much of avocados. It was like the height of my house by the time I was in high school, and produced so much. I used to take avocado sandwiches also, right? For lunch every day, I used to enjoy those avocados. And I loved that tree so much because it gave me, food that I loved so much, and I loved that avocado. And in my adult life, I came and my mother said, where's the tree? When I went to visit her one, she said, no, we chopped it and got it. I said, what do you mean you chopped it? It's such an amazing tree. It produced that size of avocados. You can't even buy that avocados anywhere. Such amazing avocados. And my high school, it was my lunch every day. It was like providing me like a mother. It was like a parent to me. It was like a guardian. And I felt the love of it, right? Like a motherly love feeding me, right? And you killed like my mother, my guardian figure. You just chopped it and said, no, the roots were growing, it's going to crack the house. I said, no, but we can call people, who can come and dig and cut the roots in that path that going towards the house, and put in a certain chemical like a black tar that will prevent the root from growing and harming the building, but keep the tree. Save the trees, don't just chop trees, right? And a big massive tree, chopped it. And she felt I'm talking weird, right? And then another, I think 2 decades later, when I went to visit her again, and there was another tree, what they call it, I don't know what they call it, I forgot it, but this amazing, that leaves is an amazing herb. I love it as a delicacy when you cook it, right? It's not, I never found it sold in any honest shop commercially. But in the yard it grows. It's got a unique taste to it. What they call it? And it's got a certain type of fruit along, and it's very fibrous, and it's got like seeds in it. And you cook it in a lentil soup, it gives an amazing taste as well, right? And you can you suck the juice out of it, and the seeds are amazing. And you can't eat the fiber, right? You have to leave the fiber aside and suck all the juice out of it. It's amazing. I used to love that thing, and she still had it when I visited her 20 years ago. But she came, now I'm blind in this time, right, when I visited her. And she was busy. One day she was out, she said, no, this tree is getting too big. I'm just chopping it, and then she's got extra leaves she'll cook for me. And even the flour from that thing is very tasty when you cook it. Oh, it's got an amazing, unique taste, right? And nowhere else I ate it except in my mother's home because she's got that tree. And people don't know about it, right? And all herbs got its medicinal value. Its herb got its medicinal, its fruit got its own medicinal value. So I don't know what the medicinal value of it. I never researched its proper name and so forth. And I said, why chopping it? It's a tree, it's producing food, it's producing something. Just cut what we need. No, when it grows too big, the branches break on its own. It's too weak, and monkeys come, and then they are dangerous. And in my cousins, in the same suburb, I got a cousin who's living, and she went outdoors to chase the monkey, and the monkey came and attacked her and bit her, and it turned, it became an infection, and she died from it. My cousin died from it, right? She, that's how she died, by a monkey bitten, because it used to come and steal the things from the house, and if you're not looking, it'll come into your house and tumble everything and steal your food and whatever is there and run away, right? And it can even harm you and bite you, and it's harmful, right? And she was citing all that, but I felt upset. I said, don't just, okay, if it's too tall, just prune it, and don't, have some, mercy for it, right? So your love, that sense of love, extends to plants, extends to animals, extends to, mice. Like, I didn't want to dissect, and I think the core reason I didn't want to go and kill, dissect a human body, you have to respect, this is going to be, this is a person that I'm just cutting into. He was a person, right? Yes, he's not showing, he's not conscious to show the pain, but his cells is there. His cells are experiencing the pain, and I'm cutting into that. I can't bring myself to do it. No. So this feeling when you break the solar plexus chakra, and you feel nothing to leave medical school. Okay, and I went and worked like a normal job, and I said, I'll build myself. If I'm so intelligent to be there, I can make myself, dominant in another field, which I did, right? In the legal field, I went to the top, where as a 22-year-old, I earned $70,000, for one session, right? And then I went into entrepreneurship, and then I earned more than anyone that I knew in my country. 6 years of struggle, and I was delivering pizza, delivering, in the evening, selling toys in the day, and to make cash flow, to ensure that I got food on the table for my children, that they can, go to the creche, to supplement my wife's income. And I didn't feel that my wife was the breadwinner. And because I said, I'm trying to build a business, that she was the main income earner and so forth. So I said, no, I will, we're building a life together. And I did my share, and I was working, and I was contributing as well, right? I would say equally contributing despite that, but working 3-4 jobs at the same time, and unable to pay my full electricity and water bill, and going appealing to the municipality every month. Don't cut it, I can only afford this amount. And they felt mercy because I got, minor children, and I'm working hard, and they saw me, like a struggling person, financially struggling. As long as I'm making some payment, and multiple years, my light and my utilities accounts were never up to date during that period. But I didn't feel I'm lesser than someone who was a multi-millionaire, and why I should have went back to the legal field at such a high status, or I should have stayed in the Department of Justice and became a judge. And the judge is the highest authority in South Africa. In my country, the status of a judge is higher than that of the president of the country, right? So I didn't feel nothing to leave that field, and I had a major scholarship, and in the Department of Justice, and I was set to be groomed to go to that level, because my father came from that field, and he made the highest levels, in his field, at that time. So I was guaranteed to go because I had the connections, and we knew the people, and they believed that I'm of the similar caliber, and I would have had an easy way to go up, right? And I left the guaranteed path because I didn't want to live under the shadow of my father. And people say I attained my status because of him. I wanted to make a man of myself through my own means, and never always be told that my father was this, father was that, and you are the first, this first, non-white, that. And how can I be the first? He already made that, reached that. The thing, no one can be reach some of the things that he attained. And I said, I'll make myself, this thing. So I didn't, and I felt nothing about that. So that status thing. And the third chakra that you need to break, that knot, is your third eye chakra, which they said is the hardest. Is like everything that you know, everything that you have learned, you have to now put it aside, is when you can transcend and go into enlightenment level. So a lot of people reach the sixth chakra, where the third eye is open, and they struggle to go from there to the seventh chakra, because they say it is pure madness to go there, or you have to need a guru that's going to take you there, will take you there, or you have to have faith and just take a leap into an abyss, and it is like near impossible. And I met people who are in very high level of meditation. They are so high that their third eye is fully open for about 10 years. It's open, and they're in such a state that the nectar, the energy, the sexual energy that's transmuted and transformed into ojas in the brain, it drips down, the excess of it drips down in the back of the throat, and it tastes like honey. They're feeling that level, that it's so full, and still they can't transcend the sixth chakra to the seventh, because they feel, I am Hindu, I am Christian, I am atheist, I am agnostic, I am white, I am scientific, I am logical. When you go into quantum physics, all logic, it's very confusing. They call it spooky action. Now you see it, no you don't, right? That thing, the experiment between number of slits, they're pushing it, it exhibits a certain behavior. Once you observe it, it exhibits another behavior. It gets like shy. And then when you say go left, it's like obeys your thought and so forth, right? It's like funny. And you don't know what is an electron and what is an atom. You try to measure it, you can't measure it, it like disappears on you. And then sometimes it appears, it stays steady and you can measure it. Then an atom is called a probability in the probability theory. Now you see it, now you don't. Now it's there, now it's not there. Right? As within, so without. So you got the black hole that is said to be the center of the multiverse or the universe, this thing that where everything emanated from, a singularity theory, and everything going to go back. It's expanding and absorbing, and as without, also all that universe is within you, which you can have in the psychedelic experience and even the meditation experience. From within yourself, you can experience higher and higher levels of dimension and experience the highest level of the abyss of the major black hole that is beyond time and beyond space, a level. Now, how do you imagine something beyond existence? Existence already, there's time and space. There's the past, present, and the future. There's no past, present. There's no. It's a non-experience. So you close your eyes to meditate. You open your eyes. You felt 5 minutes go, but 12 hours went by. You can't account for the 12 hours. So some people felt that they abducted by UFOs, and they didn't know they were driving or they were in a certain thing. Just that they found there was a 3-hour gap in time, but they don't remember. And they noticed there's a 3-hour gap that's unaccounted for. So they went into that dimension beyond time and space, or they say that they were abducted by aliens, and the aliens did some experiment with them and wiped their memory, and then they go into hypnosis, and then they experience what they experience, and they feel pain. And some people, they go into psychedelic experiences, and then they have negative experiences, and then they find that this demonic entity is following them, and when they come back for it, they feel its presence, and sometimes they see it they're bringing it back from that level to this level. And all these things, it's like you are creating it with your mind, right? Those who are very professional and using psychedelics for over 30 years and so forth regularly, when the one person on a podcast in, I think, the Sean Ryan show that I heard, he said it is an hallucination, in his opinion. After 30 years of experiencing it almost daily, is a pure professional psychonaut. Initially you get confused, then you say no, it's a higher dimension. This is fake. This is an imagination. or a construct, right? It's not real, and what you go into is actually reality, and this is actually a simulation. That's the word, simulation. And so then, after going so many times, eventually I concluded that these experiences are actually an hallucination, right? And that's what he would term it. So maybe because he's afraid of the scientific, but the way he said it is the best way he can. And me, in advanced yoga meditation, I'm able to speak to, at times, higher frequency entities, and on an ongoing basis I get a lot of knowledge and information from higher frequency entities. Like many of my videos, you'll find unique information that not in any of the books, but makes perfect logical sense, explained in a way that is understandable in terms of modern science, right? But in a unique way, so many unique angles. Where did I get it from? So you're getting it from, means this person has got interaction with higher frequency beings. So when you hear people speak, you know what level of interaction. Hey, this guy knows stuff that is outer or otherworldly or higher worldly, right? So especially people like Joe Rogan and so forth, when he speaks, the way he speaks and so forth, like very mature. I say, of course, he's like an enlightened person, right? He's got that enlightenment experience, right? And people who's matured in the ayahuasca experience and so forth, they speak differently. Even like John Lennon, the way his songs are written and so forth, right? And he had many, psychedelic trips and so forth, known for using psychedelics and so forth. But his songs are so amazing, right? John Lennon and Leonardo da Vinci, I don't know if he used psychedelics, right? And Beethoven, right? It seems to be connection with a higher worldly frequencies, but it's your higher self, right? Or entities that you can't explain, like how we are explaining another entity here, in that explanation. So the logic, it is there, but it's here, and then you're seeing it here, but the other person can't see, but it's physical, so you're speaking, it's telling you something about that person that is real, that you don't know, that knows, and you're hearing it, and you tell them, this is just how you knew. But they can't see what you can see because you are more finely refined. And then they found that certain things that they see in the psychedelic experience that other people can't see, but with the iPhone Pro Vision camera, captured it on camera, what they couldn't see. And like me, I captured in one of the sites when we were managing a certain pharmaceutical site, we captured it on camera. It was like a holograph image of a UFO. So it means in another frequency, because we had a high-end camera. That client could afford a very high-end camera. We put the most expensive camera to capture, because the pharmaceutical, they were ISO 9001 and 9002 certified. So they wanted to see finer facial recognition. This is decades ago, right? And then, so it was so highly, but when we saw this and we recorded it on the camera, right? And we sent the security to go and see. When he went there, he could see nothing with his naked eye. But we can see it on the camera, but the naked eye could see nothing, right? Because the camera was a higher pixel, a higher frequency. It could capture something that the naked eye could not capture that. Because bees can see a higher spectrum of light. The world is so beautiful and humans can't see the spectrum. I mean, humans are like blind in the dark, but owls can see so clear, cats can see so clear. Humans are like deaf compared to a dog. They can hear something you never heard of it. Snakes know when there's going to be an earthquake so much before, and they can alert you. The snakes are so connected to the vibrations, they can feel it, that you don't feel it. You're like deaf to all these things, right? And so forth. So the higher frequency, so what you feel is logical and the unexplained and the mysterious things. And it doesn't really, you can be here and you can be in another place at the same time. How is that possible? And then if you want to read some of the mystical mysteries, read Autobiography of a Yogi, right? It's a compendium of a lot of miraculous stories. So written by a highly respected individual. So we expect that all what he said is not lies, right? That people won't come out and say, everything there is lies. Who's coming out and from the scientific community saying this thing in the book, and they're having a special program? Or this is like how they come out and deny, UFOs and so forth, right? So the UFO phenomenon, I believe, is something from other dimension that some people automatically open up and they can see it, and that's how come it's unexplainable, that it can move 300 knots. It can go underwater without a splash. You can see the ship the size of a football field go into the ocean, go into the water without creating a splash or a ripple, and go in and travel at underwater 300 knots per hour, right? And they see that. There are reports of people seeing that. And if someone was in that ship, when they saw it going from one end to the other so fast, with the gravitational shock, that pull is going to compress your human body into a pulp if you are sitting. That G-force alone will kill you, will smash you if you're going to experience that speed. Because your body can only experience up to a certain level of speed before it deconstructs from G-force, right? It's going to be, that's how fast that thing moves, and moving at the other. So you start experiencing, and it feels like absolutely you can't understand. So you become open-minded. It's here. Is the Kundalini a goddess, or is it not? It's light, or it's not light. Is it God? Of course, not this thing. And maybe the source of everything exists, and it's not. It's inside. It's not outside. Ramana Maharishi said, no, it's not inside the body. But majority of people say, yes, it's in the base of the spine. Other people say, no, it's not in the base of the spine. This culture saying, there's like so many controversies. It's not a controversy. It's relating to a dimension that is not, it's a higher dimensional entity that exhibits behavior and features and properties in individuals differently for different people, but there are certain commonalities in certain schools of thought that you can, explain it. And only when you experience for yourself things that cannot be explained, you go and experience the region beyond time and space. And constantly I'm able to have samadhi or enlightenment experience now currently daily. And sometimes while in the wakeful state, I'm 24/7 in a certain level of samadhi all the time, right? And then I go to like there's 32, theoretically 32 levels. I identified about 7. I didn't want to go and study the 32 levels. I just see what I've experienced, and I have different other dimensional or higher dimensional experiences consistently, 24/7 in the wakeful state. As I'm speaking to you, I'm having, like I'm in multiple places, in multiple dimensions at the same time, right? It's like you in imaginations and in dreams, like to make you understand. But it's a very vivid and it's real. And what they're saying, it is an entity you see, like in different types of recurring and telling you what is real and what is true. What you didn't know, and understanding and an explanation. And I got the answer for it, right? And, so you need, that's the third chakra, the third knot that breaks. And it can be physically. So when I do a chakra unblocking, I break all these things. So when you start, it opens your mind up, and when you talk, when you hear stories that is totally unacceptable, unbelievable to the normal person, you start to say, maybe we don't know, it's a possibility. Who knows? Anything is possible, right? So the consciousness expands, right? So it expands beyond the box, beyond what is finite, into the level of beyond what is known, beyond time, beyond space, right? Into quantum, into spooky actions, right? And doing energy healing, I do remote energy healing, right? Specializing in critical care recovery, terminal illnesses. And I can be here maybe in Istanbul, Turkey, and my patient can be in Moscow, Russia, or can be in New York City, or can be in Sydney, Australia, right? Or in Karachi, Pakistan, right? Or Johannesburg, South Africa, right? No problem. Instantly, I can connect with them, right? And so forth through developing and enhancing it step by step, step by step, step by step. And the advantage of the chakra unblocking is someone breaks it, it opens your minds up, and also makes your advancements in your psychedelic experience exponentially safer, better, higher. You want to go higher and higher levels every time. So the chakra unblocking opens up the path for you like nothing else. So I didn't know the people were approaching me for chakra unblocking for this. This was the young, I didn't even know there was things such as chakra unblocking. So I was doing it, but these were people who like taking psychedelic trips. These are between the ages of 20 and 25, 20 and 28 age group people who were very interested. And then I used to hear a lot of them, they, going and trying out LSD and trying out mushrooms and, all that, they're talking about it. And they want to have the out-of-body experience. So it's a short, quickest way of out-of-body experience using the psychedelic than trying to practice yoga meditation over a long period. But yoga meditation is a safe, natural way, and you adjust, and it's a permanent change. That as you're growing incrementally, you're also growing, your world changes, your life changes, you become more nuanced, and you go to a higher level. You go from, trying to make $1 million a year to making $1 million a month to making, $1 billion a year. Right? And getting a net worth of over $300 billion, right? You start going up. The financial rung, it's not that automatically get thrown to you. It makes it possible, and you make it a goal and you attain it, right? Eventually, not easily, right? Like for me to make $1 million a month, it took me 6 years of delivering pizza, selling toys. I didn't feel this thing. And when I earned it, I didn't suddenly put on a cap that I'm the status and, I still talk the same, as what I was when I was poorer. And I was rich, I was poor, rich, poor, high status, low status, high status, and still the same person. Now in the sixth chakra is your intuition, your creative, your third eye, in charge of past, present, and future. You must get out of that construct of time and space and keep your mind open. Don't say, now I'm a Judeo-Christian. Anyone who is, worshipping idols, they're worshipping demons. And then I am now Muslim and God, I will not worship. Okay, that person want to worship, that is level, that is a thing, that is belief. I respect to you, brother. And that is your faith, and no problem. I will study it, and I will eat in your home, I will eat at your table. Some people, certain cultures, they will not sit and eat in the same table as someone else consuming alcohol. I say it's a sin. Or they won't visit a place where alcohol is, served. Say it's a place where Satan is present. I feel nothing to visit a pub and entertain a client, and he has alcoholic drinks. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I used to drink, and I stopped drinking about 20 years ago. I didn't feel the need anymore, right? And even now, I don't feel anything negative. Oh, I must stay without drinking. No problem, but I don't want to get addicted. It's also an addictive thing, right? When I used to have it, I used to love it, but I couldn't stay away from it. It needed me to mindfully leave it, right? So I made a decision in my mind, clear cut, I'm going to stop it, and I stopped immediately. And I used to be a smoker for 23 years, smoking a packet of cigarettes a day. This was 19 years ago I quit. How I quit, I just said, from this day forward, I'm making a firm decision I will never smoke again. And it wasn't that easy. I tried many times and I failed. But this time I made a resolve. I said, even if I'm going to die of withdrawal symptoms, I'm going to accept death, then try to light up another cigarette. And of course, I was feeling the cravings and so forth, I'm going to pass. Then I know the first 3 days are very difficult. Then to pass the 2-week phase, and then to pass 1 month, and then to pass month by month, and pass 6 months, and then I passed a year, and then I passed 2 years, and now 19 years. I didn't touch it, right? So I made that resolve, because as you're evolving in meditation, you are able to overcome addictions. So that's how there's this psychedelic drug, or this drug called Ibogaine. And there's the approval now for scientific experiments in the US, in the state of Texas. I think they're trying to raise $100 billion US. And they've already, million, and they've already raised 100 billion, right? They already raised 50 billion. Forgive me for confusing million and billion. Because, working with high-end corporate things, it becomes like common terminology, billions and millions, right? Now trillion has become a common word, right, in the vocabulary of people and so forth. But that construct, I am Christian, I am, no, yes, okay, you like to, I'm following the Muslim path, and I wasn't born a Muslim, only at the age of 38, because I wanted to follow a simplified way, but I wanted to also worship, because I believe in a God principle, but not like how other people, it's not a persona like a male or female or can be seen. If it can be felt or seen, it's not God, because we feel and see within limitations of finite nature of our brain, right? And I've experienced beyond what is finite, beyond time and space. I've experienced, and I experience that daily, in meditation and in my prayer. And I don't feel, but I want to, because it is, to regard this persona, it is inconceivable, but is a person. A persona, like, loves you so much. It's unbelievable. Was always there to pick you up when you fall, to guide you when you ask, and to help you attain your goals. A lot of people said, no, I'm trying to manifest, but certain things, the baby can't be born in less than 9 months. Something's going to take 6 months to achieve, something's going to take 6 years to achieve, something's going to take you 9 years to achieve, something's going to take you 12 years to achieve, something's going to take you 40 years to achieve. It took me 30 years to learn to control my Kundalini energy. 30 years it took me. It took me 40 years to go to master level energy healer, right? 40 years to reach master level. And I'm trying to attain it for a long time, from healer to master level, and now want to next go to grandmaster level, right? So certain things, I didn't lose hope. I believe that it's either I'm going to attain the goal or die trying. So your heart didn't survive. That's why you lost hope. You lost your heart. So your heart to go, your passion to go comes from your heart. Your belief is in your heart. You believe in yourself. Yes, I believe this. I can do it. I can achieve it. This is in your heart. If your heart doesn't stop believing, your heart didn't. So I'm trying to relate these words to a song, Magic, by Olivia Newton-John. So this is my understanding and explanation of the God principle. Listen to that song, right? It's destiny will arrive if your heart survives. So why it doesn't arrive, that with your destiny, why your destiny doesn't come? Because your heart didn't start. You didn't believe it's going to happen, right? I didn't lose hope that I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur. 6 years of struggle. People said, go back to law. I still believe I'm going to succeed. I carried on. And then I succeeded. And I earned more than anyone. They couldn't believe. All the people that told me I'm a nothing, I'm a dropout, I couldn't make it as a doctor, I couldn't make it as a lawyer, and I'm a dropout, and going door to door, I'm a nothing, I'm worse than a dog, all the insults. I didn't worry about those insults, right? And I just focused on what I need to do to survive and continue with my goal. And I'm going to attain it. When I went into the international market, the Dubai market, and I wanted to learn international business to become a billionaire, right? And it took me 9 years of struggling, and the people that I dressed professionally, and I spoke professionally, so they respected me, because in Dubai, when you can speak English without a Arab accent and without a Indo-Pakistani accent or a Chinese or Filipino accent, and you speak, professional level English, they have a higher respect for you. And if you're wearing a suit, dressed professionally, and speaking, the English language, so you treated with respect. So that was what, but I was, didn't know where I'm going to get my next income, where my next commission is going to come from while I'm trying. For 9 years of struggle, right? 9 years of struggle before I made it, right? And I made it. And maybe I was not going to make it. Means I'm going to keep trying till I make it, right? And now, when COVID period lockdown, through the influence of a friend, I decided to focus my full-time work in yoga meditation and energy healing, right? I didn't want to do it full-time because there's no money in it really. And I was doing mainly for free and, and so forth. Then I said, okay, I can make my money, full-time because I'm very well established as an energy healer. And I just recently attained a master level energy healer, right? 3 years prior to COVID. And then I said, okay, I'm a master level and this could be a source of income. But now it's now 7 years that I'm doing it full time. I hardly earned any proper money compared to what I was earning, like millions and so forth. And I'm surviving. I can buy food and, have have a hot meal and sleep, in a warm bed and have a hot bath, on a daily basis. I can afford all that and have my, healthy foods, my specific diet. I can afford all that. But focusing on building my channels and building my business. And I know it's going to be, if when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, right? So you just keep tightening. When life tightens, I'm not going to let circumstances overcome me. I will overcome the circumstances. So I treat life like a gaming experience. I'm now on a higher level. Next level, it's hard, but doesn't mean it can't. There are people who's going to go to the next. How am I going to go to the next level? I can't cry and sit down. And if I'm going to cry and sit down and say I'm in such a, be negative, I'll stay on that level forever. If I'm going to go to a salary job, and get I was offered a partnership in a company, 25% shares and live in a luxury neighborhood, get a German vehicle of my choice, sponsored by the company, having director title and set for life. But I don't want to work for another company, and dictate. I want to be my own, create my own multinational, major company, right? And be independent. Where I can make the rules that I feel is just, because I didn't want my majority partners make unjust rules and they overrule me in the decisions, but it's like an injustice to the staff, right? And we had at that time over 1,000 staff, right? So this construct of what social norms think, what you think is right and wrong, what is day and night, what is scientific, what is unscientific, what is particle, what is wave, and so forth, starts getting blurred. You have to relinquish. Yes, you study everything, you study other cultures, then release everything. And that's how you go and be open-minded, right? That yes, I believe my argument is right, but maybe in a certain way the other person's argument could be correct. That the people who seeing the UFO, maybe they really was abducted. Maybe there is in this world, a spaceship that came from a particular planet in this world, not from another dimension. I believe, multidimensional, right? So multidimensional means hallucination, right? In science terms, because it's in your mind, in a different level of your mind, and other person, you see it, but other person can't see what you're seeing in the same time and space, right? So that's what we call an hallucination or a vivid imagination, and you have vivid dreams, right? So it is technically, according to normal thing, it's a hallucination, right? Subject of hallucination. So I hope you're getting to understand this, and this is important for you to break to advance. Why you want to go to enlightenment level? Who wants to know what is God, what's the meaning? People don't want to know meaning of life these days. They don't want better health. They don't want to overcome the illnesses. They don't want to learn to combat stress. No, they want to dominate other people. They want to get superpowers, right? And by you perfecting your higher, expanding your consciousness, you get the capability and the capacity of dominating other people intellectually and emotionally. You can be more stable emotionally, means you can withstand the highest stress levels and withstand a storm. That makes you a formidable factor. You get a better willpower, And a better willpower and focus can give you the potential to be more successful, but doesn't mean you don't have to carry water and chop wood. Still have to chop wood and carry water, right? Without hard work, but hard work together with strategy, but your strategy to improve it is why people want to elevate the consciousness in this field and dominate people. And of course, there is magical powers as well, right? There is, one of my magical powers, I can heal terminal illnesses remotely, not 100% of the time, but majority, a very high level of success I have, right? And people can even test. You can do a 10-minute anxiety fix to test, right? Whether I am faking it or scamming, right? Before you make a pay, okay, let's do a 10-minute anxiety fix. You sit down, and I will send you the energy. If you feel you received the energy, believe that I have the energy. If you didn't feel it, okay, don't let's not start. Let's not waste your time and my time, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy transference and so forth. And I have to take, I charge a consultation fee and so forth. But if someone doesn't want to pay me the consultation fee and test it, I'm willing to this thing, but still you pay for the test. I charge $5. Consultation is $100,000. The test is $5, right? For 10-minute test, no problem, right? At least, what's $5? I'm not after your $5, but I'm an entrepreneur and I don't want to give something for free, right? There must be a value exchange. And I don't need to prove myself to anyone. I don't need your money. I don't need your this thing. If you don't want to pay me, you don't, it's okay, fine, right? But I want to heal you, and I don't want your healing for you to suffer your illness because of your pride. I met clients, right? They got terminal illness. He said a friend got terminal illness. He will refer that friend, but they don't trust me. They don't trust this thing. How am I doing it? Energy healing remotely? Really? Then they don't want to refer the friend. They'd rather the friend die than to try this. I said, they got nothing to lose. Pay me only after it's successful. They don't want to do this thing. They don't want to believe in it, right? And what can you do? Okay, you can take a horse to the pond, but you can't make it to drink. So you live and let live. There's all kinds of people. There's some people is going to end against you. Don't take it personally. When someone insults you emotionally and so forth, okay, he's on that level. So you are a better person, higher person. Doesn't mean if someone calls you, an idiot, a dog, good for nothing, because you can't earn money, you are worth nothing, worthless fool, a worthless idiot. No, you're not a worthless. They think you're that, and maybe currently you don't have any money, but you have the determination. What is the price of your determination? And your positive thinking, right? Your positive mindset, the power of positive thinking by Napoleon Hill, still selling to this day, based on this principle, right? You can whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it will achieve, right? How? It is absolutely impossible. Someone coming out 28 out of 30 in junior primary, they must not even think of becoming a doctor, right? And the whole class laughed at me when I was around 10 years old that I wanted. Not only did I get admitted in medical school, I got the most prestigious transferable American scholarship in the country or in the history. Well, I never heard of people getting that type of scholarship, right? That not only all my fees and all my expenses paid for, as well as like my food and luxury items like chocolates, like the university cafeteria, whatever sold there, I can use my student card and the scholarship is going to pay for it, right? So I took chocolates, I took soft drinks, and I took biscuits, and I took cigarettes. I didn't have to pay cash for cigarettes. As a student, and you're a smoker, right? That time I was a smoker. I told you I was smoking for 23 years, only quit it 19 years ago. So I had my cigarettes and everything covered, the scholarship covered all that, right? And it didn't cover alcohol, right? But it gave me spending money 3 times a year. With the first money, that I was able to buy a student car cash, not a big wealthy luxury car, but a student car, cash about it. And my income was more than the average income of an average earning class person from my scholarships for spending money. Because the scholarship said they don't want us to go work part-time. They wanted us to spend that time studying and living a student life and relaxed life and not be burned out. working 3 jobs, going to classes and studying. I mean, they wanted to make life comfortable for us to study because they believe we are of that status. Oh, I want that type of scholarship, right? And so forth, right? And I didn't. Of course, I thought deeply before leaving it, right? And I don't ever regret, because I knew that time when I'm leaving it. I said in the future I don't want to regret my decision. And the way I normally made my decisions in my life, I made my decision according to my heart. I didn't follow logic and what other people said. What my heart tells me, okay, I want to do this. As much as defying, or much as my judgment says don't do it, this is not logical, it doesn't make sense to do this, it makes more sense to do that. My passion is here. I want to do, and I did it. I didn't want to stay in a marriage that was no longer, for the sake of the society. There's no harmony. There's no agreement between the two people. Okay, let live and let live. The person don't want to be with you, okay. Or they want to change. If you don't change this way, I can't be with you. Okay, I don't want to change. This is what I believe, and I can't change what I believe. So if you feel you're on a path, you want to do, I'll give it to you, right? And they are so amazing. I love them so much, and I cared so much. I can do anything. But there came a point where it was like a point of no return. I have to cut them out. You have to cut them out, right? So you must be able to make that decisions, because not be stuck by certain social constructs and so forth. But this is what happens. Like I can physically break it in people. That makes it easier for you. And if you include psychedelics with it, you'll evolve, expand your consciousness much faster than doing the esoteric practice, but it's a safer way than natural practice, right? So I hope the information helps you, and take care.